etc. In extension activities, he has contributed 5 decades of practices in medicinal plants like Gloriosa superba, Apericum perforatum, Picrorhiza corua, Swersia chiraita, and Valeriana jatamansi. He has a very good knowledge as well as experience in terms of medicinal plants. I hope all the participants will be benefited from his talk. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting. Please continue with the presentation, sir.
Share my screen, and
Yes,
then
sir.
I'll start.
Okay, sir. Sure, sir.
I hope it is visible. My screen is visible to you now.
Yes, sir. It's visible. Sir, can you please put in presentation mode?
Yeah. I'm doing that.
Okay, sir. It's visible.
Okay. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share my experience of medicinal plants with the passionate participants pursuing medicinal plants as their hobby, interest, profession, whatever it is. At the core of my heart goes to the authorities of CAU and of course the funding agency ICR through this NAHE project, that now they are emphasizing on medicinal plants in a very big way. Gone are the days when I started my professional career, medicinal plants would used to be just a small section or a small session in a big program on agriculture or horticulture or forestry, natural resources, everything. And that time we always would get constrained about by the time paucity. We could not put our point across, and then the audience also would be very generic. Everybody from different fields would come together and listen to us. But in the last decade or so, the times perception, the concept about and the importance has changed so drastically that now we are having exclusive programs on medicinal plants. Whether it's a training or a workshop or a seminar, a regional, national, or international, we have now dedicated seminars of medicinal plants exclusive. That itself should motivate all of us, that the world and the society and the governments, they are looking it at with a fresh perspective. Now, the topic that has been given to me by the organizers to talk to you, and this topic instantly happens to be my core experience area. That is this resource sustainability issues and opportunities in Himalayan medicinal plants. Now, why did I choose this topic, or why did the organizers choose this topic? Is because, especially post-COVID, we have all realized across societies and across countries that the natural therapies, which are mostly based on plants, which we call as medicinal plants, will provide us the edge to confront future diseases, whether they are bacterial or viral or any other. And there are so much of business interest has got generated world over in every part of the country or every part of the world, where the new entrepreneurs, they are coming forward, no doubt, but they are coming forward in which sector of medicinal plants? In processing, in product development, in marketing, etc., etc. Now let us introspect. If a product is based on the production, field production, farm production, or wild production, unless and until we have a matching sustainable production of raw material coming from the ground, coming from the soil, coming from the forest, coming from the natural areas, coming from the farmers' fields, whatever technologies we may have, whatever advantages that we may attribute to these plants, that will all come to naught if we don't have the right material with us. I'll be sharing data with you that over a period of time, deficiency in the resources has emerged a very key issue, and this is only going to increase in future years. So when we are looking at the entrepreneur possibilities and opportunities in medicinal plants, this would be my counsel and urge to all the participants that they should and they must explore the option, the entrepreneur option of growing medicinal plant and to maintain the supply chain. If somehow this supply chain gets broken, or if the supplies don't come from the wild supply, the raw material supply don't come, the whole edifice of processing, value addition, supply chain, marketing, product development will simply collapse because there will be no raw material available. So we have to be very careful, and that is why I have tried to choose a topic probably which is gives me a opportunity to put my views across. Now, we all know why medicinal plants are important. So whether they are sources of home remedies, whether they form part of the traditional system medicine, they are leads to modern drugs, and many of our modern drugs are based on plants, which are medicinal plants. They are chemical intermediates for drugs. The traditional system healers, which are in any number in any part of our country, not only here in India, but in other parts of the world also. So it is there, they use it. And when we look at the business commerce part of it, so the commerce is also huge. Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, homeopathy formulations, proprietary, ethical, and over-the-counter drugs, herbal cosmetics, herbal teas, functional foods, nutraceuticals, extract and phytochemicals, flavors and fragrances, culinary herbs and spices, veterinary herbal products. So you imagine any sector, the medicinal plant would always be there, is always there. Now, when it comes to quantified terms, we have about 8,000 species, and about 50% of which are flowering plants in our country. And this Indian medicinal plants, they have 8,000 species. So this is a huge, diverse biodiversity range, and which caters about 12% of the global herbal trade. And we have Ayurveda using about 700 species, Unani 700, Siddha 600, MG, varying number of species. So essentially, the strength of any or every traditional system pathy in our country is medicinal plants. And these traditional prescription, we all know 95% or more than that, they are based on plant-based. And out of all these 8,000 species or whatever is being in trade, of them, 400 species are used commercially. There's proper trading. But about only 20 or 22 species are being grown as crops. It is here our concern starts. It's here our concern begins. It's here we all should be collectively concerned about all this thing, what's happening. If we are using 400 species actively in trade, and that is on the basis of the demand, commercial demand, and then but we grow only 20. So where from are the raw material of other species is coming? It is coming from wild areas, so we are destructively harvesting it. And this also provides about 35 million work days of employment a year, this entire sector. And this is as per Pharmaceutical Council of India. Now, let us take another scenario in mind, market scenario. It is assumed that the herbal trade world over is about $120 billion a year. And the market in India in 2019, it was at about 56 US million dollars. And this is expected to increase at a cumulative increase rate of 38% to 14 billion rupees by 2026. Now, see why I am giving the figures of 2017-18 when we are in 2020, 21. It's because the authentic figures are not available for the recent years. The authentic figure that I could get was for 2017-18 only. And that is India exported about 330 million US dollars worth of herbs in 2016-17, 2017 and 18, which was at a growth rate of about 14% over its previous years. And again during this time, about 456 million US dollars worth of herbal value added products were also exported. So we export two things. One is the raw material as such, and the value added products also, and which was again a jump of about 12% over the year 2016 and 17. And the demand for herbs and their value added products is gradually increasing in foreign countries, and especially in European and other developed countries. And this is when India itself is a huge market. We have a 1 billion population, and they also have these demands. And this is after we meet the internal demand, then whatever gets exported. So volumes in terms of tonnage in raw material is immense. Now, we all have experienced COVID and we still are passing through, and that is why we are in the virtual mode. Had this COVID not been there, probably all of us would have been in the offline mode. Now, COVID has taught us something, few things, which is that we all need to boost innate immunity. We need to adapt prophylactic approach, that we should do whatever we can do to prevent diseases. We should use natural organic ingredients. We should use food as a prophylactic medicine. That is important. Food should not be taken just as a means of calories, but as a prophylactic medicine, which will, apart from giving us the calories, should also be able to prevent diseases in future. And nutrition should be used as a medicine. Whenever we talk about vitamin C's and D's and other things, antioxidants, etc., we have to consider them as a medicine, as a prophylactic medicine. Plant bioprospecting for antiviral ingredients. Now, more and more emphasis is on finding antivirals based on plants. And that is, this is a research aspect that has emerged after COVID. Importantly, now there is more and more clamor for scientific validation of traditional therapies. And now, instead of talking or calling or addressing the whole issue as a herbal medicine, now people are calling it as herbal nutrition. That the nutrition itself, when it becomes nutrition itself is a medicine. So why should we call it as a herbal medicine? We should call it herbal nutrition. So at Strata, there are so many things that we as a biologist, plant scientist, have taken this learning from COVID. Now, all this is going to have increased demand for botanicals. And again, we as plant scientists, whether we are from forestry, we are from horticulture, we are from botany, we are from core medicinal plants, and we are dealing with natural resources, we all have to put our capacity and capability together to, to produce or to develop strategies or develop awareness of producing this raw material on sustainable basis, because we should not end up at a situation where we have everything, knowledge and the product and the demand, but then we don't have the raw material. So what is the good of that knowledge or the product if we don't have the starting material, how to process that, how to what to process. So we have to be very careful, conscious about all this. Now that takes us to the resource crunch. Sorry. Again, this is another valid this assessment. Just a minute, just a minute, just a minute. Okay. Now the resource gap. This is our resource gap. This resource gap is what is causing the concern. Now, before this slide, I gave you data which was in terms of the currency amount, how much is being traded, how much is being exported. And now this is a data which tells us that during 14-15, again, this is the most authentic recent data. We don't have authentic recent data beyond 2014 and 15. There may be data as present, but that is unverified data. Now, if we take this data, if we look at this data, this says that during 2014 and 15, we had a domestic industrial consumption of herbal raw material was estimated to be 1,95,000 metric tons. And the commercial demand of herbal raw decks was 5,12,000 metric tons. And then there was also consumption by rural households, which does not get recorded officially, which never enters the commercial trade. It's because the local people, they visit their neighboring forests, harvest the material, use it in various ways for the medicines. And it was estimated that about 1,67,000 metric tons was used that way. So the commercial demand in 2014-15 was 5,12,000 metric tons. We already had used 1,95,000 by the industries, and the rural is also 1,67,000. And then the top of it, only about 22% of this raw botanical, it was sourced through cultivation. And in doing so, what they have recorded is that 1,178 species were used in trade. And out of which 242 species are traded in excess of volumes more than 100 tons per year. Now, all that you have to imagine is that when this is a huge volume of raw material and only 22% of it is coming from the cultivated fields. The rest of it, 78% or maybe 80%, that is what makes us concerned about the whole issue. And that tells us that because of which we lose biodiversity, many species are classified as rare, endangered, and threatened. It is degrading the natural ecosystems, and it's leading to destructive harvesting and limited, and then the limited regeneration, because the cultivation activity in medicinal plants is happening in very few number of species, 20 species, as we said earlier. and on a very limited scale. So all those concerns are coming from the demand, have a demand for lot of huge quantity of raw material, but then all that raw material is getting getting sourced from the wild areas. So that we have to keep in mind, because if we keep the quantitative terms in mind, then probably we'll be much more concerned. Now, this is a compilation, a data. This is which are the top 20 medicinal plants traded in India. This is a list of 20 plants. The list may vary from period to period because this is slightly older kind of a list. But this gives us a fairly good idea as to those which are banded yellow. That these are some of the species which are of the hilly areas. So there are hilly area plants based in hilly areas which occur amongst the top 20 medicinal plants traded in India. So we in the hilly area, residing in hilly areas and dealing with hilly areas as far as biodiversity is concerned. So we have focus species in our mind, that which are those species we should target or we should provide a solution at the outset. Now, before I go further, I have deliberately included this slide, which I call as health and happiness. Now, this health and happiness, I have taken this graphics. I have borrowed this graphics from a presentation of Bhutan. Now, we all know we call Bhutan as the happiest country in the world, because they score much higher as far as the gross national happiness index is concerned. And now see through this graphic how Bhutanese themselves are looking at this gross national happiness by integrating the traditional remedies and the medicinal plants. So what do they attribute? Why they are the happiest? Because they have good governance, free healthcare, and sources of employment on one hand. They have preserved their traditional medical culture. Third, they have conserved their medicinal plants and environment. Their socio-economic development is very good. And biodiscovery and bioprosperity, they are investing so much in biodiscovery and bioprosperity. All these aspects are contributing to promote good national happiness in Bhutan. So although Bhutan is a small country, but it has got great learning for us, that if we have to be happy, the ultimately objective of any one of us is to be happy. And how do we be happy as a society, as a nation? Because if I have good governance, I have faith in my government, I can get a job, and then I have to take care of my health also. So the traditional remedies, if I take care of, take their care, and if I conserve and preserve my medicinal plants, that is giving me an insurance, an assurance for good happiness. So anyway, we're talking about, my talk is majorly on medicinal plants. So when we talk about medicinal plants, we have these Indian medicinal plants, which are large altitudinal range. And we have all kind of ecosystem. There's the tropical, subtropical, temperate, alpine, tundra ecosystem with us. We have about 1,700 plants. Aromatic plants are also there. And then there are a good number of RET medicinal plants, rare, endangered, threatened. And these rare, endangered, threatened species are those where the demand is much more, commercial demand is much more. If we do a SWOT analysis of the Himalayas, so what are our strengths? The strengths, we should always do a SWOT analysis for any aspect of our study, for any region, for any aspect, for any commerce, for any activity that we would like to do. If we do a SWOT analysis of Himalayas, as far as these medicinal plants are concerned, then it turns out to be that is an important natural sources of many high value temperate and subtropical medicinal plants, and home to 26 out of top 100 species that are traded in quantities more than 100 tons per year, like Picrorhiza, Karu, Aconitum, Heterophyllum, Swarsha, Chareta, Suspuria. So if we have to deal in some species like Swarsha, Chareta, Picrorhiza, Karua, etc., we have to go to the Himalayas only. We have several schemes going on, national and state schemes which encourage medicinal plant cultivation. That is again a strength that we all have. Several states, they are emerged as hubs of pharma-based industries, including herbal industries. Against it, then we have public institutions, whether we have institutes of CSIR or ICAR, Central Agriculture University, Info Alpha Sigurd. Then we have CSIR Institute. You have the Northeast Institute of Science and Technology. There are so many education institutions who have come out with knowledge and technologies which only has to be emulated, which only has to be pursued, which only has to be followed up to take the idea theme to a logical. So it's not that as far as what is there and what we can do, the knowledge is there thanks to these institutions which are present in this region. Then, of course, if we have strengths, we have weaknesses also. Now, the many weaknesses which I can count is that the climate change and habitat destruction are the great weaknesses, which disturbs biodiversity. And despite several herbal pharmaceutical industries, there's very poor direct linkage between industry and herbal farmers. That we have to address. When we are talking about cultivation, we don't have any improved varieties of important temperate medicinal plants. We may talk much about Podophyllum and Picrorhiza and Susuria and Swarsha, but if anyone asks for a good variety of them, we don't have it because we have not invested that way. We have not researched them that way. There are general lack of value addition processing facilities at local level. So we have the Northeast region, say Picrorhiza, for instance. Now, how many processing facilities are available there? You have to transport it to a farther distance to get it accordingly processed. Then we have, of course, when we need the cooperation of farmers, the farmers would definitely go after the cash crops. We have these off-season tomatoes and cabbages and cauliflowers, etc. Which are emerging cash crops, and they give immediate revenue to the farmers. The medicinal plants have a lag period. That's another weakness, and for that, the unorganized herbal farmers are also there, which would hamper large-scale cooperative production of specific herbs to attract attention of bulk users. Then we have these opportunities. We know the geographical climatic condition, they are unique to whatever they are unique, so we can encash there. So whatever the geographical climatic conditions are present in the Himalayas, they cannot be replicated in a coastal area or a desert ecosystem. So then we have also many species, commercially important like Tagetes minuta, Valeriana, Suarshat, that can be grown in large tracts, avoiding human-animal conflict. Now, this human-animal conflict has emerged as a very important aspect of agricultural activity across the hills and the middle regions, and because of which, especially monkeys and sorry. And nilgai, for instance, a lot of hindrances in proper agriculture is taking place, and people are even at many places giving up agriculture. So these medicinal plants can provide an alternative crops where you can grow those crops, which can avoid this, which won't be attracted to those monkeys or nilgais, and thus will avoid the human-animal conflict. And And opportunity another is now when we are looking, even earlier when we used to look at the medicinal plant sector, we only used to think of the drugs to treat a particular disease. But now what we are talking and appreciating is that they have theoretical potential. They can be used as nutraceutical, they can be used as cosmeceutical. So our basket of species that we can think of, that we can build upon, that we can contemplate doing a business upon, is much more larger. We can address the nutraceutical industry, we can address the cosmeceutical industry, we can of course always address the this aroma industry using the aromatic plant, and then of course the traditional medicinal plant sector also. So our canvas has increased as our knowledge and understanding of the whole aspect has increased, and plant sustained development of herbal sector can prevent further biodiversity loss. And there's a strong option, and we must and should, and there already work has started at many places, that the forest floor should be used as an for in situ cultivation, not only for conservation, but as a place where we can conserve these. And threats, when it comes to threats, we have several threats. We have competition from similar regions. Nepal, for instance, China, for instance, Afghanistan, for instance, Pakistan, for instance, where similar geographies and climates exist. Sorry. And we have to withstand competition from them. Replacement of herbal ingredients by chemical substitutes, that's another threat we have to keep in mind. Biodiversity loss, especially of high end demand endangered medicine plant due to habitat destruction, that is a threat. Mislabeling, misbranding, and adulteration, that's the biggest bane, because you market a drug under a false name, and the consumer loses its faith because he does not get the kind of potency he is expecting. And mislabeling, misbranding, adulteration, this is all a threat to the existence of a particular pathy. And I won't say lack of scientific validation, but very minimal scientific validation is available, because when you have to globally trade, you have to have an assurance to the consumer that whatever claims are there, medical claims are there, they are scientifically validated. Now again, a list which is more than 100 tons, so of academic interest. Now, when it comes to sustainability, when we talk about sustainability, there are several aspects to sustainability. If there is issues, what are the issues in sustainability? The first and foremost thing is ecological threat. You have to understand it that this is a narrow distribution, habitat destruction, invasive alien species, habitat, and pollen requirements. So all that is ecologically needed, and if that is not available, that puts many of these species under threat. So we have to comprehend that. Then there are, of course, the normal, what we understand whenever we talk about unscientific harvesting, illegal collection, lack of elite variety. These are economic threats. All this is leading to economic threat. But then there are also, apart from ecological threats, there are inherent threats also in the plants. Endemism is a threat. Reproductive barriers is a threat. Low seed set in species is a threat. So we have to comprehend that also. Asexual multiplication and cultivation. Many of the species which are being cultivated, like Picrorhiza, for instance, is being mostly cultivated by vegetative propagation. Now we all know vegetative propagation. What is the harm of vegetative propagation? That this is giving them multiplying the same genotype, and that becomes it more vulnerable to any climate change or a disease. So again, that is an issue that we have to keep in mind when we are talking about sustainability. Because sexual reproduction, cross reproduction through seeds, would always give you the kind of variation in the variability and increase the gene pool, which will give it a cushion against climate change, which won't be there if there is vegetative propagation only. Then there is cross-border illegal trade, Jatamansi, Salam Panja, Jiva, Kheer Kapuli. This Nepal, Pakistan, Bhutan, India belt, there's a lot of porous border is there, and there's a lot of trade is taking place. So anything which may be banned there may be illegally taken to other countries, and then India will have to import it from there. The same material which is Indian, but under illegal channels, through illegal channels, it may go to another country and then come back to us after importing it, paying higher cost. Again, that impacts the sustainability. Then, of course, inadequately trained stakeholders in GCAP. GCAP, good collection and agriculture practices. So whenever we have to either to grow a plant or we have to collect a medicinal plant from its natural areas, it's not that we can collect it anytime. It's not that we can collect every part of the plant. So we have to have an adequate knowledge about that species and adequate idea about how to collect, what to collect, and when to collect. So that training also has to be imparted to the field workers who are actually going to the field and trading in different and collecting and harvesting and collecting the material either from the agriculture field, farmers field, or even from the natural field. So adequate training is required. Then it goes without much saying that genetic improvement work in temperate medicine plants is very extremely meager. And we don't even have a base strain species like Podophyllum, Ecolatum, Picrorhiza, Suartia, Susuria. Name any species and tell me an authentic. Is there an authentic strain variety available in any of them? No, it is not there. It's because most of our emphasis in the last many decades has been either to develop a cultivation practice or to develop a product, develop the processing technology, or to collect its ethnobotanical details, or to collect its distribution data. But developing a variety, a good variety, which will have which would address yield issues in terms of biomass yield or the active content yield, not much of works have taken place. And if they have taken place anywhere, they have taken place by the individual interest of the individual only. There has never been an institutional structured support to have a dedicated varieties developed in each and every commercially important Himalayan plant. Just like whenever we talk about vegetable, like we talk about tomato or any vegetable, you don't talk in terms of tomato, you talk in terms of a particular variety of tomato. You talk in terms of apple, you talk in terms of a particular variety of apple. So similarly, the situation has emerged that we now need to refocus our research efforts in these plants and come out with good varieties, which will make it cultivation much more sustainable. Now, when we are talking about sustainable is possible when we have a produced as per the demand, and that is to when we can grow it. But when it's to be grown now, when we cultivate, so these medicinal plants, when it comes to cultivating medicine plants, they have to be cultivated as per this cultivation has to be divided into two aspects. One is when you have to exclusively cultivate for profit, and cultivate for profit is when you have species like, say, for instance, isabgol. You have species like Withania somnifera, or you have species like Bulgarian rose. Now, those are species which are very well established, which have very huge demand, and every cultivation practice or a processing practice are completely, fully, very well standardized. There we can go for cultivation for profit, where we can pitch them vis-a-vis the other crops. But then the number of species, medicinal species, is such huge that every species, if we talked about, we at once in one side talked about 400 species, and another side we talked about 1100 species. Now we cannot expect those 1100 species to be cultivated profitably, because the demand is not that much. The demand is there, but every species does not have equal demand. There's tremendous demand for things like ashwagandha, there's tremendous demand for things like amla, but similar demand may not be there for Nardostachys determinans. So those species where the demand is not huge, but there is still demand, then we have to grow them for sustainable harvest. And then and how can we achieve the sustainable harvest? One way would be using the forest floor for cultivation, because when we are talking about hilly areas, 66% of our land has to remain under forest, and this 66% of land, at the remaining land, which is about 34-35%, we have to have housing, we have to have roads, we have to have industries, we have to have many other activities, and we also have to have land for agriculture crops. When we have to grow, we cannot compromise on the land which is under growing of rice or wheat or maize or fruit crops or vegetables, because that is essential ingredient. We cannot wish away that. So when we have to grow medicinal plants, the first challenge is to get the land where to grow these medicinal plants. So especially in hills, when the 66% land is to be kept under forests. So let us go to the forest and use the forest floor. Earlier, it used to be the forest floor used to be used for conservation, but now that has to be grown, that has to be utilized for large scale growing, especially when we are cultivating for sustainable harvest. And this forest, when it comes to medicinal plants, with the raw material of medicinal plants, we always talk about the organic cultivation, the chemical-less growth. So when we grow them on the forest floor, the forest floor growth would always be organic, because we will not be adding any inputs there, and we will be growing them in their natural niches. And any plant which grows in natural niche area is considered to be more potent, because it has the right mix of the active content in it, because of the kind of environment it gets. And when it comes to about 1100 species being in active trade, we don't have the cultivation protocol for each and every species. So let us grow them at a place where they are most comfortable. They may be slow growing, they may be habitat specific texts. So grow them there which is the most appropriate condition, geographical or the climatic condition for them. So use the forest floor, and it also gives some benefit. It saves you on land cost, because of course most of our forests are under the forest department. Of course, it will be their prime responsibility how to organize. But then as a society, as a nation, we will be able to tap a huge land resource. Because again, when we are talking about cultivation, we have to not only address how to grow it, what to grow and where to grow. So all those questions have to be answered in the right perspective. So where to grow, if we are not able to get land exclusively for growing a species, we should explore the possibility of using the forest floor. That may not give us very high productivity, but at least whatever produce will come, it will be sustainable, because you are making an effort, a cultivation effort, and that cultivation effort is ultimately going to lead to an organic production where it will be free of devoid of any of this harmful things. This is just an idea of Himachal which I have taken here, that if we are using about 5% of the cultivable forest area, just 5%, if we can get about 1 lakh hectares of land can be released for medicinal purpose. This is just an idea. And so we have to talk in more in terms of a paradigm shift. So from in situ conservation, we have to talk in terms of in situ cultivation. That is a paradigm shift that we all have to have in our mind, in our approach, in our thinking, and in our attitude in using in situ cultivation, especially when we are talking about sustainable production. Now, coming to some species examples, we know when we talk about medicinal plants from the hills, there are many plants which we all know, like the saffron is already well known, well established in some parts of the Himalayas, and it's only our collective research effort that we need to take it to other places. But even if we don't take it places, we don't take it to other places, we already have a motivation that there's already a successful species which is doing well in the Himalayas, not only nationally but also internationally. So these examples, why I'm showing saffron here is that sometimes when we are discussing this medicinal plant cultivation and then narrating it medicinal plant cultivation, we generally start on a very low tone that there are not many plants that we can do well in Himalayas or in the temperate condition. But of course, there are species which are doing very extremely well. This is just products. This is how people are doing it. Then we have this rhododendron. All this Himalayas rhododendron is very well known as the rhododendron's squash is very well known. So we need to upscale it. It's already established. There are products in market based on rhododendrons. Upscaled it. Can we have more and more plantations of rhododendron and harvest their flowers, and then start making rhododendron squash and all that, market it on a wider scale? This we have to explore. So this is already very well established, and we only have to promote our entrepreneur understanding and skill in such a way that we are able to exploit an already established species. And there are many more species which are present in the Himalayas, like Sivak thorn, another species. We should think more and more in such species which are valuable. The technologies are available, but upscaling has not taken place because the entrepreneurs who show enthusiasm in discussions of doing much in medicinal plants, but when they actually have to do, they think in terms of logistics, going to a place or not going to a place, and doing everything through the cloud. That is not possible unless and until there is a section of the society who starts the activity right from the ground. These medicinal plants are not going to serve us for long unless we start doing the cultivation part, unless we start doing and thinking the sustainable way of producing these materials. Now, we will be rushing through them. The most talked about, when we talk about Himalayan medicinal plants, the most talked about are like this Suvarsha chuleta at one point, and it still is a critically endangered species. And this is a plant which gives us amarogentin. And this amarogentin, besides being very valuable in many of the these disease condition, like it's anthelmintic, hypoglycemic, antipyretic, blood purifier, it is the bitterest compound, natural compound known so far. It's the source of this is the source of it. And at one point of time, this was critically endangered, and now because of our efforts, we have recovered it from nature, and now people have started actually growing the genuine Suvarsha Chirata. Whatever in market you get Chirata, that is not genuine, because the real species is this one. And they grow Suvarsha angustifolia or petiolata, other species. This is one. So we can do it. So there are some works which we have done. Valeriana is another species. And what we have found that how to grow it, what to grow it, and when to grow it, the technologies have been perfected. Many areas in Northeast are important for this growing this. In fact, this is on the list of the plants which NMPB, National Medicine Plant Board, is giving a subsidy up to 50% if anyone grows it, because there's so much in demand. And what to grow, how to grow. It has two strains, the male and the bisexual, the female and the bisexual. And we have found this valipotrate is the active content present in it. And there is the valipotrate content varies from varies in these two plants. So we have found that how we can increase the proportion of the plants which have more valipotrate in the population. We have done that, and we have also registered a very good strain in this which has a more than 4% valipotrate, and this is registered with NBPGR. Like Picroryza, again, cultivation practices are known, but when we started working on this, there were several aspects to Picroryza which were totally unknown, like the chromosome number was not known, and which from genetic improvement point of view, if you have to develop hybrids, its pollination mechanism was not known. And this was found, and this was determined for the first time. And now we know if we have to make a hybrid in Picroryza crew, what to and how to do it. That mechanism we now know. Incidentally, a faculty, Dr. Tara Singh from CIU Pasigarh, he has worked his work of PhD. He has done it. Then this is because this is being now grown, and Uttarakhand has done tremendously in as far as this growing kutki is concerned. Now, from a critically endangered, now we have genuine supplies of kutki coming in the market. One more thing which is important about kutki, that this is on the negative list of exports of Government of India. That is the government that this species, the raw material of this species, cannot be exported because we have so much of demand from the internal industry, and this is also endemic to the Himalayas. Nowhere in the world this is available except for this Himalayan belt. So you can understand how valuable it is, and it is very useful, extremely useful for treating jaundice, apart from other diseases. But for jaundice, this is one of the medicine. In fact, it's a very important ingredient of Liu 52. So some studies done. Janshana kuru, another critically endangered species. Again, when we started, there were no cultivation practices, what to cultivate, how to cultivate. We have some data about how much we can get if we start growing it. And this is all what we did. And these all technologies are available. I am showing that the technologies are available. They can be provided to those who are interested in growing. Hypericum perforatum, this is an antidepressant. This is an antidepressant activity due to hypersyn. And this is what we have. Found. Then we have found different morphotypes also in it, and these morphotypes vary in the hypersyn content, the active content, and also in the biomass yield. And because of which now we have registered 3 varieties of Hypericum perforatum with NBPGR based on their relative hypersyn profile, as well as the biomass profile. Podophyllum exandrum, again a very important anti-cancerous plant, and a lot of variation it has. But the biggest problem with the species is that it produces only a single flower a year, and the variation uh, does not get fixed, does not get actually correlated with the active content which is present in its rhizome. So there's a lot of scope for uh, isolating these variants and growing them at one place, and then finding out their value portrait profile, and on that basis select a variant and multiply it, which can give us and the selection parameters can be the higher rhizome yield and the higher podophytotoxin content here. This is Nardostachys. This is very interesting. This is endemic to a very small region of Himachal and Uttaranchal, and India is importing it from other countries which have Nardostachys vitaminsi, and we have studied and have found the reasons why it is critically endangered. And now we are in a much better way, because earlier the idea was that this was got endangered because there has been a lot of destructive harvesting. But what we have found is that the chief reason why it has got endangered is not the destructive harvesting, but some inherent features in the plant. And now, now we know, our strategy will be different in how to tackle and manage this species. So this is the tamang seeds now being grown again in some parts of the Himalayas on a large scale. But of course, it's not to that extent, to that level, which should expect. National Medicinal Plant Board is giving 75% of subsidy to grow this plant, and there are some regions in the northeast which are bordering Bhutan, which can grow this species. Now, these are aspects which will have a fundamental basis on how to genetically improve it further. And Angelica glauca, another important, commercially important. Again, Government of India provides 75% subsidy for its growing. And the biggest issue in this was the seed germination. The farmers would always get confused about how much the seed is germinating and how much percentage of the seed would germinate, and they would try all sorts of hormonal and other thing and intervention. And of course, there was some literature also available, but whenever we would try to replicate that literature, we never could get identical results. But what we later on found, that the seeds come without embryo. Most of the seeds that this plant produces does not have embryo, so they are sterile. Externally, they look like perfect seeds, but they are not perfect. So the strategy has totally changed. So now it has become easier to manage Angelica glauca. Now we know from which flower we have to take the seed and which will give us a higher germination. So we have cut down the cost of cultivation, because the farmers don't have to do all those treatments of hormones to improve symptoms, which doesn't which never happened, because there's no embryo. So there's no it's like flocking a dead horse, because there's no purpose in giving an treatment to a seed which does not have embryo. So all this is required, and all this has led us to many successes. Aconitum heterophyllum, again we have many important leads available, that these are the strains of Aconitum which can be grown, which can give higher tuber yield. And when we grow them, because ultimately when we are talking about entrepreneurship, the entrepreneur should get a good lead, good idea about how to grow a species and what to look for in the nature, and what kind of an regulatory, what kind of a quality control one has to keep. So if such variations are available to him, so those variations can be taught to that person, and he can keep on looking for them, and he can keep on multiplying those. And ultimate aim is to give a higher productivity to him, to his effort. Gloriosa superba, again, this is wonderful species. This is a very commercially successful plant, and many parts of the northeast are home to this species, and have a lot of potential to grow it. And this is a source of colchicine. The seeds contain colchicine, which is a tremendous impact on improving the gout, the disease gout condition in a human being. And this colchicine can also be used for inducing polyploidy implant breeding. So this is commercially very important, and some areas in Tamil Nadu are the home of large-scale commercial cultivation of Glorious Super. And now Andhra Pradesh has also taken up its cultivation, and because there used to be a lot of tobacco growing area in Andhra Pradesh. Now, with the gradually reduction in the tobacco demand, the traditional tobacco growing areas now are slowly getting replaced by growing of this glorious superba. And what we have done here is that the seed is the important important product. But the seed production in nature is quite low. So we have devised an hand pollination method by which the seed production gets increased by about 3 times. And now that technology is being adopted, is being followed by the farmers in that Tamil Nadu, where it's being commercially cultivated. And because that has helped them in increasing the seed yield, and that seed yield is giving them good colchicine. The colchicine content in the seeds is about 0.7%. And if you are able to increase seed yield, it is going to give you product sustainably. And also the seed production can take place annually. So every season they get a harvest. Before the seed came into focus, it is its tubers which were harvested. So the tubers had only 0.2 up to 0.2 or 0.3% of colchicine in them. And at that time, it was not known that seeds also are source of the colchicine. But then when this tubers were harvested, that would lead to destructive harvesting. And harvesting economical size of tubers would take about 3 to 4 years. So every third, fourth year, you would uproot the entire population and then replace it and wait for another 3 or 4 population before the new crop could be harvested. But once this seed thing came into knowledge, and when we intervened and provided a method by which the seed yield could be increased more than 3 times, the seed yield suddenly became very economical. And now people have forgotten about harvesting its rhizomes, these tubers. And now what is being done is the seeds are being harvested annually, and there is no this destructive harvesting, and they are also getting a good recovery of well portrait. Mukuna, again, the stingless and stingy varieties, again important sources of L-DOPA. Many areas in Northeast are being, they grow this, but this can be grown on a larger scale. And again, this is a very commercial high demand. So entrepreneurship can start here also. It's very easy. It's a leguminous crop. It fertilizes the soil, and then instead of the stingy variety, we can have stingless variety. And there is absolutely good demand as far as this is concerned. And this can be. Then there are exotics, definitely. Now it's the indigenous thing, that the exotics that are here. Stevia, for instance, has come up in a big way. The zero-calorie sweetener, it has come in a very big way in many parts of the country, and Northeast and other parts of the country where do you have the appropriate climatic condition. This can expand because there are so many diabetics in our country. Rather, India is the diabetic capital of the world. So this is a plant which has a zero-calorie sweeteners in it. So its cultivation can be adopted, and there are various products now because of the paucity of the enough material in stevia in our country. this species has been kept under this open general license, where many of the imports are coming from China. We have to make efforts to increase our own production, although already some efforts have already started, and people have started growing in many parts of like Uttar Pradesh, people are growing it, Punjab they are growing it, Haryana they are growing it, Himachal they are growing it, but not to a very large extent. In Karnataka they are growing it. In Northeast, I'm not very sure about its cultivation footprint, but there are regions which are sub-temperate regions of Northeast. It can grow very well there. This is stemocide, so we will not go it. So this is the planting material we can distribute. Then another important which has come into focus is this echinacea. This is a very one of the very few plants which has antiviral activity, especially these respiratory viruses. And this plant has again come into focus after COVID, because when at COVID we had not many antiviral plants which have established antiviral activity. So this is basically an American and European plant, but in mid-hill condition it has done well. This is another species of future we will be hearing a lot about. So for entrepreneur, they can have another chance. They can look at this species in a bigger way, because there's no competition from the wild areas. We need these natural antivirals, and since it's already a part of the respiratory virus remedy, and it is one of the top one of the 10 top most herbal plants used in Europe, echinacea purpurea. So we have to look at this entrepreneur opportunities. Then this wild marigold. This is a success story from Western Himalayas now going to Eastern Himalayas, because this is a tacitus oil which India is importing. And there's a lot of effort being made by several agencies, by CSIR. They have an aroma mission, and in the aroma mission they propagate its cultivation. So this can be used, and the biggest advantage of this is, apart from its aromatic uses, this also solves the problem of nematodes in the soil. So wherever in agriculture, wherever there is this nematode problem, by simply growing or mixing the herbage of the species in the soil, to a very large extent minimizes or controls the nematode problem. And then this is again also in those regions wherever we have this human-animal conflict. So this can be another species, and it just grows very well without any inputs. And it's more a wasteland plant, a roadside plant, and where the demand is still there, and India is importing all this oil. That is why it is under focus. This is some works we have identified some strains which are good. This is how it grows. It can be grown in any part of the country. And then there are government initiatives. Yes, there are many government initiatives that has taken place, that are taking place. And I will not go into some policy issues here. But what the initiative, so since all of you are in the medicinal plant, interested in medicinal plant, I don't know how many of you know about this e-Charan. This is an app. This is a wonderful app, and everyone should download it, because this gives you a market interface. Through this app, you get to know many things about many plants. Their demand, their price. If you want to sell it, you can use this app. You want to buy, you can buy it, and you will immediately get to know about how much is price possible. So you can take a real-time decision at which are the species you can take, which are the species you can avoid, like that. Then setting up a 7 regional centers in different regions of the country for facilitation of herbal. This is another feature that they have done, the facilitation centers. they have done. Then they have also developed guidelines for voluntary certification of raw material, because whenever you go for exports, exports would be possible when you have these certifications. Although government at this moment does not insist on any certification, but it has encouraged atmosphere for voluntary certification. So if anyone trader wants to go for export, they have to accompany it by a certification as to whether it is organically grown or it's an farm produce. So the guidelines of good agricultural practice are now available. So one only has to follow those guidelines. Then these are some incentives which the government is providing, varying from 30% subsidy to 50% subsidy to 75% subsidy, depending upon the species. So this is a great incentive given by government, and we have to follow it. And then this is expected if we grow any of the Chareta, Atish, Kutki, Virginia. So we have some idea on the basis of the prices of June 21, which I have collated, that how much we can expect, how much yields can be expected, what is the price of these are June prices, of course. Chareta, like it was 350 rupees a kg, the dry herb, and one can get about 2,500 to 3,000 kgs per hectare of Chareta from an hectare. So at this cost, so you can very well imagine how much one can make returns. So this is conclusion. Medicinal plants, whenever it comes, the conclusion is always a challenge. We all have to collectively join together, handhold each other, and build upon each other's experience and competence, and take the sector forward sustainably, ecologically, and economically. Some species for the Western Himalayas, which have been shortlisted, and these are some species for the Northeast. We may have some variation with one or two species, but these are some of the Northeast. There are many species when this comes to Northeast or Western Western Himalayas. Many of the species are common. And at the end, I finish here my acknowledgements to some of my sponsors, my institution where I have worked, my research collaboration, my students, my faculty colleagues, everyone. And my thanks to all of you. Thanks for your patient here.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable and very informative lecture. Now, I request all the participants, if you have any queries and clarification.
Oh, it will be a pleasure. It will be a pleasure to answer if there are any questions.
Yes, sir, sure.
Any
Anyone?
questions from the participants?
I'll unmute it. First, I'll unmute all of you. In that process, it will mute also. In the chat box, whatever the question it is there. Any questions in the chat box? I think no questions. So I have unmuted, and please, you can ask any question. Sir, I request you, sir, unmute.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, you can ask the question.
Sir. Sir, hello, sir. I am Ashok, sir.
Yeah, you can ask, Ashok, you can ask the question.
Sir, actually, I want to know that is there any medicinal plant for this ongoing pandemic corona, sir, COVID-19? Hello? Can you hear
Sir,
me,
you have,
sir?
sir, you have muted.
Sorry.
You have to unmute.
Raina sir, you have please unmute yourself.
Yes, madam. Okay. Yes.
Raina sir, please unmute.
Yes, madam.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes, Dr. Ashok, please repeat the
Yeah.
question.
Yes, sir. Actually, I want to ask regarding this COVID-19, sir. This pandemic situation. Is there any medicinal plant we can suggest for this purpose, sir?
See, if I give you a straight answer, there is no such plan, because
Yes.
we have to understand what is COVID-19. COVID-19
Okay.
is caused by a virus, and we don't have any appropriate antiviral plant available identified so far. But what we can do is we can prevent. Prevention is possible only when we improve our innate immunity. So any immunity booster, whether it is Tinospora cordifolia, whether it is Ocimum sanctum, whether it is Amla, all those things we can take, we should take, because that is going to give me an inner immunity, and so prepares my body better to withstand these COVID kind of infections. As such, we don't have anything which will immediately kill the virus, the COVID virus. There's no such plant, neither in allopathy or in traditional medicine. But innate immunity, one should target innate immunity. Yes, definitely there are so many plants which are known locally as well as nationally and internationally. And the most prime examples are Giloy, Tinospora cordifolia, Ocimum sanctum, this Amla, and this pepper. They are important. They are important. This haldi, turmeric, they are immunity boosters, and you should recommend. That is recommended. Improve your immunity as much as one can. Any other question?
Any other questions from the participants? One question is from Mr. Senthil Kumar. If you can unmute yourself, you can ask. It's Ocimum teniflorum. Is it more sweet than sugar, and how? Please unmute yourself, Mr. Senthil. Please unmute yourself. Yeah,
Mr. Senthil, you are. Yes.
Is audible, sir?
Yeah,
Good evening,
sir. Good evening.
Sir,
Please go ahead.
Ocimum teniflorium, sweet tulsi. Is it more than sugar? Is it right, sir? Or how the plant is more sweet?
See, the sweetness in Ocimum. See, what is Ocimum teniflorum? This is the new name for Ocimum sanctum. Our traditional tulsi. This is the new botanical name for that species. Number one. Number two, the sweetness in Ocimum teniflorum has nothing to do with the sweetness. Sweetness. See, when we use the word sweet, sweet is one. We have that we compare sweetness to sugar.
Yes.
And also we use this word sweet when we are comparing a bitter variety with a non-bitter variety. We generally call it sweet.
Sweet, yes, sir.
So, but when you have that sugarcane kind of sugar in your mind and sweet, then this Ocimum teniflorum or Ocimum sanctum is not sweet.
Yes, sir. Yes.
It is not going to give you the same kind of feel as if you are taking sugar.
Yes, sir.
But it does not have any bitter content in it. So that is why there are some species of Ocimum which are bitterish. So to differentiate this species from them or from those, it is referred as sweet. Nothing to do. No, there's no sweetness. You cannot replace sugar by Ocimum teniflorum.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Welcome, welcome.
Any other questions from the participants? The session is really a very useful session, sir. It's really very, very informative, and you have shared a lot of things, sir. It's an honor for us.
There's a comment, body pain, but I don't know what is the meaning of this question.
Sir. One Satyajit Kumar. I could not unmute my question is ice cold. You elaborate the entire process of immunity boosting through taking some kind of products made from medicinal plants. I cannot get the question.
I can also not get the question. What is the reference to ice cold? But then, if it is related to boosting immunity through taking some kind of products made from medicinal plants, yes, there are. I would like to say, just give me 2 minutes if there is some time. We all must understand, if we all introspect, that from the time we get up in the morning until the time in the evening when we go to sleep, how many plant species do we use? Do we consume? Any guesses? How many species? 5, 10, 15, 100? Any idea? Can anyone make a guess? How many species we use from evening to morning to evening? Dr. Chanu can give it since her video is on. You can make a guess.
I think for me more than 10, sir, more than nearly 15 species, maybe, if whatever I know.
How many? What you said? What's the number? 50?
15, nearly 15.
15. See, now start counting. The first thing that you do if you take a cup of tea, how many plants are there? Starting from the sugar, the tea leaves, and the milk comes from the cow, and how many grasses that cow has.
Yes.
That's one. You visit washroom, you use soap, you use toothpaste, you use perfume. How many plants do you consume? You take breakfast, how many plants you consume, which should include the spices also.
Yes.
The spices, the pickles, and of course the main paratha or whatever you are preparing. Then go to main course. Then go to your prayer room, the incenses that you use.
Yes.
Look at your cosmetics basket. How many creams and perfumes and oils and lotion that you use, shampoos you use. If you count the number of species, it will touch 100, and that we all use together every day. And when I ask this question, why are we using things like spices in our food? Why do we use spices in our food? Is it to add color and taste to food? It is not. It is for improving the digestibility and the absorption of that food in our bodies. That is why we use turmeric. Now we know turmeric is very useful as a blood thinner. It helps heal our inner wounds. So it has become part of our diet. Now, all this is happening in a subtle manner and without our understanding or knowledge. It is helping our body in many ways, boosting metabolism, improving our absorption, improving digestibility, strengthening our muscle, and also improving our innate immunity. Now, we all know these phenolic compounds, antioxidants, which are rich in vitamin C's and all those, they all contribute to improve our immune system. Why do we all take tea? Tea is our passion. Anywhere where you go, you offer a tea, you are offered a tea. Whenever you meet, chill out, you take tea. Why do we take tea? Why has this become a fashion? Why has this become such an integral part of our daily lifestyle? Why? Anyone can ask. Where from has this fashion, where have from this lifestyle has emerged? Because tea is such a source of antioxidants, and which our body needs to maintain itself in its proper shape and neutralize the free radicals in our body, which would adversely impact our health. Because whatever food that we consume, after this absorption process, there are so many free radicals that get emerged, and these free radicals are very dangerous. And their life is very few nanoseconds. But then if they are left free, they can hit us anywhere and impair any part of our body and impair any body physiology. So they have to be controlled. By providing antioxidants. Tea is a very powerful antioxidant. So just for the heck of it, we take tea. So we are, even if we have taken a biscuit or some apple or some fruit, and these free radicals can emerge. And so we take this tea and coffee, antioxidants, we provide the body the antioxidant. So all those free radicals get controlled. Now, all this is happening because all this is contributing to improving our innate immunity. So definitely these medicine plants, whether we talk about giloy, things like Spinospora, we talk about tulsi, we talk about tea, we talk about amla, we talk about turpentine, they all contribute to improve our body immunity. Yes, immunity through medicinal plant is a reality that we all should understand and spread this word. Start using these. Most of you must be having these tulsi pots in your home. You worship it, tulsi. The best worship is that you consume every day, make it a habit of consuming 1 or 2 tulsi leaves every day. How many of you are doing it? Even if the tulsi plant is growing in your backyard or the tulsi pot is in your on your terrace, how many of you take tulsi on a daily basis? The tulsi is such a wonderful plant. That is why it has been given the status of a religious plant. It is so important medically. So these all medicinal plants. Yes. Okay. Any other question?
Sir, good evening, sir.
Yes.
Sir, good evening.
Good
Sir,
evening.
I am Venkatraman. I am Venkatraman from Chennai.
Okay, great.
Regarding Ctenophora cardifolia, what are the parts are useful for the medicinal purpose, sir? And how to extract, sir?
See, Ctenosporia, you should take the stem part of it and use its decoction. You only have to boil the stem pieces, cut them into smaller pieces and boil it, and hard boil it. And it will be bitterish, but you have to take that bitter thing. And that is how. So you can standardize the dose as per your taste, as per your requirement. But if you take the Ctenospora cordifolia decoction, your platelet count improves, especially in the dengue when the platelet count falls. This is very important in boosting the platelet count. Then it also improves your innate immunity.
Okay. In Tamil, we call it as a Sindil Kodi.
Yeah,
Tamil,
local name would be different. Definitely local name would be different.
So myself, I take single sugar, that white crystal sugar, out of the stem. I collect some white pods, that is single sugar.
That is your choice. If you can afford to take sugar, there's no harm in using it with sugar. But the sugar will not add to its any medicinal quality.
Okay.
The sugar, probably you are trying to overcome its bitter taste. That is why you are
Yes.
using sugar there. But there is no need of using sugar. But as a taste enhancer, if you want, if you are comfortable with sugar, no issue. No. If you are no issues with obesity or say diabetes, then it's okay, fine. You can go ahead with sugar.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, welcome. Okay, any other question? Dr. Chanu?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So,
And any questions from the participants? Any other questions? Any queries from sir? I hope in future also sir will help us guide you all. Sir, can we provide your email ID, sir, to the participants? It's okay, no, sir?
oh yeah, I can. I can put it in my chat.
Okay, sir. If in future,
I can
if they want to,
everyone. This is it.
okay, thank you, sir. Any other queries from the participants? Otherwise, we will wind up the session if you don't have any other queries.
Oh, sorry. I will say this has not gone to all.
Okay,
This
sir.
email has gone to probably only to you.
Okay, sir.
Just a moment. I will. Everyone in the meeting. No one will read it. Yes, it's no one.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other queries from the participants? I hope no other queries. Once again, thank you so much, sir, for sharing so much of knowledge to us, especially the endangered and important plants, especially of the Himalayan region. And I think it will be very, very useful for the Northeastern participants also in particular. Thank you so much for sparing your precious time with us. Thank you, sir.
Okay. All the best. All the best.
Thank you, sir.
And say my thanks to your head of department, dean, and the vice chancellor.